Hi, hello. My name is Juan Ulloa, and today we'll be presenting the universal basic income, whether it is a path to equality or an economic risk. So what is the universal basic income? The universal basic income, or UBI, is a policy where government gives all citizens regular, unconditional cash payments. It is designed to ensure a basic level of income regardless of employment status or other factors. So in basic terms, this means that everyone gets the same pay and it doesn't have a variety, a very big gap between wages. So that an example of this would be a doctor would get paid same 20K that a cashier would be get paid, and so on and so forth. Um, UABI pilots have been conducted in Finland, Canada, and the US. An example of the US would be in Stockton, California. These trials aim to test the UBI's effect on property, mental health, work motivation, and economic activity. So UBI is a very uh, simple on paper, but just like everything simple on paper doesn't mean it can be implemented well into the real world. Not many people agree that the UBI should be even a suggestion as experience and education comes into play. I get some people find that more educated and should be paid more rather than educated being paid near the same wages as them. It takes a lot of time and effort to go through those processes, but at the same time, everyone needs to be uh, maintained, work, and it it sort of sets this middle ground where, well, should we implement or should we not implement based on the general understanding of how the situation with economically is within an area or areas in total. So that's what basically the UBI is. So why is this issue important? So the UBI is very important, especially in the automotive and manufacturing stations, same as the the service sectors. Um, I know that automotive companies such as Ford, GM, Stellantis, even outside the U.S. and in the U.S., prefer to have uh, robot automation or robot assembly lines rather than human assembly lines because it is cheaper. Two, three robots can do the job of 100 people, and the wages of 100 people are a lot more, cost efficient than what it is to maintain two, three robots to assemble a vehicle in a assembly line. Same thing for this self-service sectors. I know we have multiple grocery stores such as Walmart, H-E-B, switching over to self-checkout, leaving the checking process to customers themselves. But at the same time, that kind of both those situations have cons to them. So obviously, I know that we project robots and stuff like that to be sort of perfectionist, but detailed work and obviously um, more more intricate, designs and procedures need to be done by humans as they have uh less of a precision, it's more of a purpose over task orientation. Same thing with the service sectors. Not many people understand or familiarize themselves with those self-checkout processes, and so it is a harder time for them to assimilate to the new norm that they are in charge of scanning out and paying for their own products in one same go instead of just paying for the product and just leaving. Um, so moving on from that wealth equity is growing. The top 1% control a disproportionate share of global wealth. Obviously, with the tech businesses and a bunch of oil industries as well. They hold the bigger power, the bigger slice of the pie in the world of equity. And so, we see that disproportionment where instead of just one single person holding $7 billion, we can dissipate this between a much more larger group. That way, everyone has a fair share of salary and economic stability just as them. And so the UBI is proposed as a way to cushion people from job loss and ensure everyone can meet basic needs. So it's somewhat similar to what we would compare to unemployment checks, where you suddenly get laid off, and for a short amount of time, they allow for you to get still receive payments in order to have a little safety net once you've been relieved of your job duties, and it not necessarily acts exactly like that, but it has some basis based on that, and the fact that you still have uh, I guess more job security as companies and and corporations do not have to have to balance out salary differences between all of its workers and stuff like that. And so the UBI reflects the question about dignity, fairness, and the future world of work. What he means by that is basically, the UBI it's on the table, but nobody wants to pick out at it and see like, well, we can use this and this, implement this and this, and see if it works or not. So that's where we move to a pro. One of the pros from it. So a pro of this would be the economic security and poverty reduction. The UBI would help reduce poverty by giving everyone a financial floor. So by implementing UBI, you would basically have everyone standing on the same ground. Everybody started at the same place and is going at the same pace. It can prevent homelessness, food insecurity, and reliance of unstable gig jobs. This happens a lot, especially with migrant workers and blue collar men. I know they have the tendency of moving up and around, finding work, not necessarily staying in the same place and having that security that allows them to stabilize themselves, having to move on from site to site, work to work, job to job. Uh, Food insecurity obviously is a big struggle as well, but obviously with the UBI being implemented, it can assist with that as they have more access to the financial stability to maintain healthy habits of having food at hand. Homelessness as well. Increasing rates of inflation have disallowed for people to have a home. The high poverty rates have risen since then, and so a UBI implementation would definitely even it out, especially since it is on a fixed salary. People have to not only maintain and manage what they already have, but as well as that extra amount of financial and economic portion that they have to carry. So obviously UBI is a very task handled, so which means it will make people better with decisions, basic needs. So it will allow people to have better decisions when they need basic needs such as the obviously the food, the homes, and jobs. We run on food. We need a home to stay at. We need jobs to maintain all of those, and so a UBI would provide all that. Another pro of this would be encouraging entrepreneurship and education. The UBI is basically saying we're giving you a fixed income, so obviously you're gonna have a little more free time, since not a little more free time, but a chance to do other stuff, knowing that you have a fixed payment into your finances. So obviously this is gonna allow you to go to school, whether that be vocational schools, whether that be higher institutional schools, whether that be certification schools, and which will allow you to obviously get better jobs. Uh, and that definitely is a big upside. In Germany, UBI participants showed more initiative in pursuing long-term goals. Obviously, having UBI and having that a little more financial stability allows you to see into the long-term future rather than the short-term future, as you're not worried about more or less like a month-to-month basis, and you're looking more at every 6 months you can promote yourself to have better options, better things, and it obviously removes financial fears and allows you to be open-minded to more career options. It obviously encourages more freedom and creativity with productivity. You know, it can, let's say that a fixed UBI payment will allow you to constantly promote a business that you are trying to start up or continue. And so that will definitely help, especially with the economy and stock markets. Having your own business at this point will definitely bring you forwards, and a UBI will be a stepping stone into that. Pro 3 would be a simplified welfare system. The UBI can definitely reduce the complex and bureaucratic welfare programs such as the WIG, the SNAP, and the TANF programs. Obviously, at times may seem very complex. People have a hard time, figuring out whether they can qualify or not qualify, whether they have enough provided from welfare systems to go on through their day-to-day life. And so UBI would be not only a welfare system implemented, but more of like I said, like a safety net in between time periods to allow for people to have that that backup plan regardless. Uh, Obviously, this would be like a universal system which would remove stigma and inefficiency from welfare. UBIs aren't mentioned as much because everyone doesn't want to play around with it, and so uh, it would definitely take away from this bad aura that it usually provides. It would also improve the overall public trust of it. Not a lot of people know about UBIs, but once explained and put into the bigger picture, you definitely get uh, to have more people agree with you, knowing that, maybe this is the better option regardless if we already have what we have, but this is a route that we could take and that has the opportunity to outlast and be a better impact than what we currently have in our welfare programs. So now that we talked about the pros, we are going to move on to the cons. Obviously UBI is a financial stigma. It costs a lot. Over three. If we implemented a UBI today in the U.S., it would cost three around 4 trillion annually. That's obviously 4 trillion doesn't sound as bad, but when we put it into numbers and an actual like panning out, it is a lot of especially within the federal budget. We currently do have a lot of we do have a high debt within the nation, so adding more to what it already is the problem. It's very bad. This would obviously increase the tax increases and cuts to other service, so you can't just add something and leave everything else there. You would obviously have to reduce and minimize certain programs, like I've mentioned, WIC and TANF programs. Obviously, those would have to be reduced, especially since you're receiving, if you could receive a UBI, they would cut up on costs from those type of services and programs and invest that money into the UBI. Obviously, taxpayers will not like the increase in their taxes, especially since not the UBI is not implemented to the UBI is implemented to help everybody, but not everybody is pitching in to help the UBI. And it would obviously cost a lot of economic restructuring as it is basically as a monthly a constant payment to one's financial situation. And so it would definitely um, take some time adjusting and restructuring our current system to implement this. And so that's where we asked, like, would the benefits outweigh the burden on taxpayers? Obviously, 3.9 an increase of UBI is not that good. I know, as we can see in the chart, we have in 2020 only, we have 6.6, and that was a COVID year. And the times before that, we were around the 3.5 to 4.2 range. And so we'd basically double the amount of spending we would do annually. And currently I don't think that would be an option. Doubling the amount we spend just on one thing is not rational, but it is an option. Moving on from con one, we looked at con two. We look at con two, which is the potential decrease from work motivation. Obviously, people would have that mindset of that. Well, I don't have to work as long as I'm getting my UBI. I can probably live off of this for a good amount of time. People can lose that motivation to go to work or work at all. You know, People will see that it's not really worth it to go to have a job or work, which would obviously increase the amount of unemployment that would exist, which would mean that you would have more a burden on those who are contributing to the current economy and productivity. Taxpayers do not want to be funding in taxpayers' mind, taxpayers do not want to be funding individuals that aren't pitching into the tax table. And so the UBI presents this issue, that everyone is, regardless what they do or what gonna do, they're still gonna get a UBI check or payment. And so this is not necessarily a good um, a good side of the UBI. We need our workforce, and the workforce needs to also pitch in into the economy to maintain what we are at the moment. So moving on from con two, we have con three, inflation risk. Obviously, it would mean increase consumer spending for goods and services. Having more money on the table means spending more money means uh that you would have to raise prices in order to balance out, the expenditures. So obviously, like the current state we had a few months ago where egg prices were through the roof. You would be buying a dozen eggs for $8. Imagine if we have a UBI. A UBI would probably bring that twice or triple, especially since everyone has the same amount of money to spend on groceries and goods. This would definitely increase the prices on the market and the prices for the consumers. The supply demand change will obviously be limited, especially since you know it has a higher cost to probably to buy it. So the demand for it will not be high, but certain products will come in, like obviously as a daily. But other products may see a big increase that would allow it to not be carried along throughout the supply chain as long as others. You know, Others say that especially economists say that the UBI would would be diminished, especially because of this risk. Adding more money to the table doesn't mean it's all good. It means more money to be managed and well distributed throughout our systems. And so, that's not very good for the economy. It's not good for the not only the US but the global stock market. And others believe, not only do people see that, maybe it cancels out the benefit of having the UBI, but policies can be made to manage to manage inflation. But inflation overall is not a very good thing even in its simplest form. People don't want to be paying more for what used to be less, and so that obviously will put critics to debate whether or not a UBI implementation is good at all. So to sum up, the UBI is very important because it allows, automation, it addresses automation, inequality, and financial insecurity. It offers a chance to rethink how we value work and care for each other. Personally, support the UBI as a tool for greater equity, but it has to be. I feel like it has to be implemented in small portions, as it is not a very addressed subject, especially within the current government administrations we have at the moment. But any implementations should consider cost, inflation, and the cultural values of the UBI would have. And with that, I sum up my presentation for what the UBI is and what it is.